Before you watch my first comedy routine, there's really two things you need to know about me. First, I'm an accountant. And I don't know what it is, but nobody likes accountants. You could go to a party this weekend and tell people you have just about any job, and they'll think it's great. You could say, I'm a teacher. Oh, you help the children. Well, I'm a doctor. You save people's lives, and you help the children. You could even say, I'm a lawyer. Okay, they won't like you, but at least they'll think you're rich. But if you tell someone you're an accountant, they're like, oh, I'm gonna go get some more chips. Yeah, for some reason, whenever I tell people what my job is, it feels like I'm at some sort of Catholic confessional. You know, in the little wooden booth with the old priest next door, and they're like, Father, forgive me, for I love numbers more than I love people. I enjoy a well laid out spreadsheet more than I do reading Leviticus in the Old Testament. I sometimes still make fun of people that got college degrees in English or the humanities, because they're all still working at Starbucks. Am I right, Father? Give me some. No, that was a sin too, and I need to confess for that. Great. Yeah, I chose a job that doesn't save people's lives, doesn't save the environment, doesn't even save their souls. All it does is make me money that I can count over and over again. Now, the second thing you need to know about me is I like Canada. And I know you're probably thinking that's not really a valid fact. Is there anyone who doesn't like Canada? I mean, what, do we not like because they're apologizing, saying, oh, sorry all the time, or there's no litter on their streets? Like, yeah, most people do like them. But I have actual reasons to like Canada, not just a sort of general vague affinity. See, my wife's Canadian, so that's a, pretty important reason to like Canada. And second, I grew up in northern Wisconsin, just a couple hours south of the Canadian border, where it gets so cold that it could be 10 below and people are like, oh, getting a bit chilly, better put a hat on today. Now up there, Canadian money, well, at least Canadian coins, had a way of trickling across the border like tiny metallic drops of maple syrup. So it was great. When I was a kid, I'd go shopping, buy a Snickers and look at my change. I'm like, whoa, Canadian quarter, that's awesome. Now, luckily, nobody had explained how foreign currency exchange rates works, because that Canadian quarter was only worth 17 cents in the US. And if I'd known that, I probably wouldn't have been so excited. But as it was, I saved up all my Canadian coins, put them in a big jar, until the obvious idea occurred to me. It would be cool if the mascot on the Canadian coin had a battle with the mascot on the American coin. So think about it. First, you got the quarter. US goes with our national animal, the bald eagle. Can fly, got those sharp talons, the cool white hat. Canada went with the caribou. Which a caribou is like a giant deer with antlers half the size of its body. So let's see how that goes. You got eagle coming down until it gets close to those antlers, and boom! Eagle's dead. Canada won, US 0. Now for the nickel, I'm not sure the US has much chance here either. They clearly were not planning on a mascot battle with Canada. They went with Monticello, Thomas Jefferson's opulent home in Virginia somewhere. I don't know how that's going to do in a mascot battle. Now, Canada, they sort of like the idea of using their national animal, and so they use theirs, the beaver. Now, you might laugh, but a beaver is an animal that an accountant can relate to, right? He's always working hard, sort of budgeting and planning for the future, deciding how many sticks to put under the ice so they can survive. You've heard the phrase busy as a beaver? I think you could say busy as an accountant, and people would know what you meant. But you know what phrase doesn't exist? Fun as an accountant. And I'm not really sure that beavers are a whole lot of fun either. He could be sitting there chewing away, Mr. Raccoon comes by. He's like, hey, Beaver, want to go tip some trash cans at Old Man Johnson's? Beaver's like, I'm a little busy. I am a beaver. And beavers are also very egalitarian, which means they treat everyone equally, but really take care of the ladies. So woman beaver comes by one day and she's like, "Oh, honey, I really wish we had a house on the lake." He's like, Floods the river, comes back a couple days later. "Baby, I didn't just get you a house on the lake. I got you a house in the lake." So yeah, I think we know where this is going. Beaver versus Monticello. Yeah, beaver floods the river. Monticello's done for. Canada 2, US 0. Now I did realize as I was partway through the nickel that I'd skipped over the dime. Did any of you watching notice I skipped the dime? Because if you did, you're very observant and you'd make great accountants. But the dime, I don't even know what's on the US dime, but it wins. Yeah, it definitely does. Now I know some of you are probably coming to the defense of Canada and like, "You don't even know what's on their dime. How can you say they lost?" No, you don't know what's on the Canadian dime. I do. It's a sailboat. Well, see, I've been to Canada many times. Their lakes are frozen 10 out of 12 months of the year, and nobody's crazy enough to hop in a sailboat and go like dodging icebergs those other 2 months. No, that's not going to happen. So I don't know if it was a mistake. Like, "Oh, sir, we just minted 10 million dimes with a sailboat on them. What should we do?" Just ship the dimes, ship them. Or maybe they're trying to be ironic or funny. There's a lot of comedians that come from Canada. But I'm sorry, the ironic sailboat loses to the mystery mascot on the US dime. Which if you do happen to find what's on the US dime, like, throw it in the comments. So we are at Canada 2, US 1, and that brings us to the penny. Now the US knew they were in a tough spot, so they went with Abe Lincoln. Lincoln on the front, Lincoln on the back, Lincoln, Lincoln, Lincoln. But it's not like the guy ever lost anything. Now Canada, on the other hand, they went with the maple leaf. And I know some of you are probably back to laughing at Canada again, but the maple leaf is really a strong national symbol. It is the only tree that we identify with one country. I mean, if I were to say, "Pine tree, name a country," you'd be like, "What, Sweden? Russia? America?" Like, I don't know, they're everywhere. Or if I say banyan tree, name a country, you're like, "Ooh, Africa?" Yeah, see, that's a continent. But if I say maple tree, name a country, oh, Canada. Maple tree, name a country, oh, Canada. In fact, people were saying that so much, finally some guy was like, "I could write a song about this." Oh, Canada, with all your maple trees. Does anyone really know the lyrics after "Oh, Canada"? Now, before you get all cocky and put in the comments that you do know the lyrics, so do I. "Oh, Canada, my home and native land, true patriot dreams, to all thy sons command." See, growing up in northern Wisconsin in high school in choir, we learned the Canadian national anthem one year and then performed it for our American friends and family. Now, I'm not really sure why, but maybe there was a risk we were going to get annexed. And so we learned it, just to hedge our bets. But so here we go, the most recognizable symbol in the world of the maple leaf against Abe Lincoln. That's tough. I'm giving it a tie. So we got Canada 2, US 1, tie 1, 2, 1 and 1. That sounds like a hockey record. And guess what? Canada invented hockey. Now, based on how well Canada did with their coin battle, I was surprised a few years ago when their parliament voted to get rid of the penny. Now, as an accountant, I understand, right? Pennies cost more money to make than they're actually worth. People don't use coins or cash as much anymore, but still it had the maple leaf on it. I mean, you don't see other countries just getting rid of their currency that has a recognizable symbol on it. Right? Can you imagine the UK that has their queen on all their money saying like, "Hey, we're getting rid of that and let's put someone else on the money, like, I don't know, Charles. Let's put Charles on our money." Like, no way would the UK do that. So It was in this post-Canadian penny apocalyptic world that my family visited Canada. And at one point we were in the Great Canadian Superstore, which if you don't know what that is, it's like Walmart, but nice inside. So we were walking around to see what Canadians like to buy, and it turns out the same stuff Americans buy. But at one point I was in the bulk food aisle, where you've got like chocolate-covered almonds for $9 a pound, a bunch of weird sesame sticks and nuts and seeds. But there was a bin of candy that said 1 cent each. Interesting. I took a big scoop of that 1 cent candy, walked nonchalantly up to the checkout, took out 2 pieces, put them on the little conveyor belt. The clerk took them. Bloop, bloop. Well, that's 2 cents. I suppose that rounds to 0. Well, I guess they're free then. And I thought, yeah, I know. I'm an accountant. I took out 2 more pieces. Now this time she was a little bit frustrated. Bloop, bloop. What's 2 cents, which I suppose rounds to 0? Well, I guess they're free then. And when I took out 2 more pieces, you would have thought all the anger of Canada came swirling into that one person. She was like, I know, it was pretty scary, and I didn't want to upset the whole, peace and happiness vibe that Canada has going on. So I said, we can keep doing this the hard way, or we can do it the easy way. So 10 seconds later, I walked out of the Great Canadian Superstore with 40 cents of free candy. Yeah, so if you were ever in math class as a kid and heard someone ask, when are we ever going to use this in real life? That was it. That was the time. I used the universal rules of rounding to get 40 cents of free candy. Now, I know you could question whether sitting in math an hour a day for 13 years is worth 40 cents of free candy, but yeah, it is. That answer is obvious. Because as humans, we love free food. Now just think, every May, you get those graduation announcements in the mail and you're like, Johnny, the kid 3 doors down, we don't even really know him that well. Oh, wait a minute. Says they're serving Italian food with cake and ice cream. Hey, honey, I really think we ought to go support Johnny and go to his graduation party. It's not every day an upper middle class white kid graduates from high school. Oh, and I got dinner taken care of on the 13th between the hours of 4 and 7 p.m. Or maybe you've been at a church potluck dinner and someone catches you with a plate full of 8 cookies and you're like, what is that? And you can't really just say, they were free, so I took them. So you're like, Sister Johnson made these cookies. I wouldn't want there to be leftovers. She'd think no one liked them. I'm just trying to be a good Christian. So free food we like, but free big stuff, it sort of freaks us out and our spidey senses go off and we wonder what's wrong with it. And I learned this a few years ago when we bought a new couch, and there was nothing wrong with the old one, it was just ugly. So we didn't feel like we should throw it away, but we didn't have a truck to haul it to Goodwill. So we made a sign that said free and set it out on our curb. It's out there for days and nobody asked about it. Now, to be fair, if I was driving around and I saw a free couch sitting somewhere, I would make all sorts of assumptions about it, like, probably full of pet hair. Or, yeah, I bet they let their toddler sleep on it without a diaper. Now, this wasn't a real problem, except we had rain coming in the forecast. So I got an accountant idea. I made a new sign that said $200, set that on the couch. Sure enough, it was gone before we woke up the next morning. Because it turns out, taking free stuff that's big, I think, feels a little bit like stealing. So no one wanted to steal a free couch and risk, burning in hell forever. Now, stealing a couch worth $200, some people at least will risk that to see if it's really that hot there all the time. I mean, I've been to Alabama. How much worse could hell be? Now, so free big stuff we don't think is great, but food we love. Yeah, you could be in the office, you see Bill there chomping on a muffin, and you're like, hey, where'd you get that? Is it any good? It's like, no, it's pretty dry. There's no chocolate chips in it, but they're free in the break room. And so, boom, we're off to get our free muffin. And I say our because we instantly claim free food as ours. And if you don't believe me, take a dozen donuts to your kid's next soccer practice. As soon as that lid gets open, someone will say, ooh, I call the pink one. And if someone else so much as touches that pink donut, if it's boys, there will be a physical altercation. Now, girls are a little more civilized. If someone takes a girl's pink donut, she'll just spread rumors on social media about the offender for a couple weeks. Very civilized. But me personally, I feel like growing up, I was always on the lookout for free food because I'm the fifth of 6 kids. And no, my parents didn't charge us for dinner. But with that many kids, if you were not on time for dinner, forget free food, there would be no food. So I think I was always, trying to supplement the diet a little bit. And with 6 kids in our family, we did not eat out a lot because it would be really expensive. But so my mom would make a variety of meals so that every Tuesday wasn't Taco Tuesday, every Friday, Pizza Friday. One day she plopped down something and said it was veggie meatloaf. So we asked her, Mom, what's in veggie meatloaf? She's like, oh, all sorts of stuff you like. Carrots, onions, oatmeal, zucchini. We're like, but what kind of meat? Oh, there is no meat. It's veggie meatloaf. Now, I must have been pretty young, because for some reason I took that to mean that anything that was baked in like that kind of weird rectangle, like 4x8 pan, is called meatloaf, whether there's meat in it or not. And that wasn't a real problem until a couple weeks later. I was at a friend's house and his mom came in and said, hey, you boys want some banana bread? I said, sure, but it looks like banana meatloaf to me. And I don't remember ever going back to his house. But actual veggie meatloaf was a problem. I mean, as usual, I was on the brink of starvation, so I took a big slice. But after one bite, I knew what you probably already know. That was a big mistake, because veggie meatloaf was terrible, awful. So I tried that trick where you cut your food into little pieces and spread it around so it looks like it's gone. And that got me mom warning level 1. Remember, we eat all our food. And it was true, we did. With 6 kids in our family, we were not in the habit of wasting food. And I don't know how many of you were alive in the 80s, but if you were, you know that mom warnings back then existed at 2 levels, level 1 and level 10. There was no gray area in the middle. And level 10 could be yelling or screaming or extreme guilt. So after a couple more minutes of sort of picking my food apart, out came level 10. It's so sad you won't eat your food. There's starving children in Africa that would love that food. Now, some of you from the 80s might have heard that same warning. I guess our moms maybe went to the same mom warning class. But I probably always had a little accountant inside me because that threat made me just think of like transportation and logistics issues. So I'm like, Mom, first, we'd have to find a container we don't want. We'd have to pay to put it on a truck to Minneapolis, pay to put it on a flight to Africa, pay to put it on another truck to the village where the children are. And, I'm just not sure that would be worth it. Now, I might have been okay if I had stopped right there, but for some reason I had to add, I don't think they'd want to eat it either. And that got me a visit from the wooden spoon. Now, it turns out, at least in the 80s, a wooden spoon was a reasonable way to motivate young boys to do anything. But it gets more awkward as males grow or become husbands if you're still chasing them around with a wooden spoon like, I told you to take that trash out. That gets weird, right? So I wondered, well, how do we motivate males to do anything like without using a wooden spoon? So I knew we had to find them in their natural habitat, which actually was easy to figure out, is on a couch watching sports. And a sport is loosely defined as anything that has a ball or rules. So there are a lot of sports out there. But I confirmed this natural habitat because I was case example number one. I mean, I remember one Saturday I was sitting there, watching TV. My girls came home and they're like, Dad, what are you doing? I'm like, just watching TV. I'm like, it's golf. And I tried to explain that it was the Masters and like really important, but they had a fair point. I don't play golf. My understanding of the rules is pretty basic. Ball goes in the hole. Excellent shot. Ball doesn't go in the hole. He badly misread that green. And for some reason, only British people can tell us how to play golf. But my theory was confirmed when my girls caught me watching the PBA, the Pro Bowling Association. Yeah, nothing says marginal sport like a bunch of middle-aged white guys rolling a ball across the floor at some wooden sticks. But now that I knew the male's natural habitat, it was actually easy to know how to motivate them. You just talk to them like the last person they ever listened to. That would be their last coach. And it doesn't matter if they quit sports after soccer in kindergarten, basketball in 8th grade, or maybe they were really athletic and played varsity football. If you talk to them like a coach, they'll do anything. So maybe a case example to help you out. Let's say you've got dishes been sitting in the sink for a couple days. Your man's over there on the couch watching X Games. And why grown men riding on BMX bikes is a sport, I don't know. But we should probably watch it at least a couple times a year. So you come in there and say, this is disgusting. And I'll point out, he's not going to respond to that. Because he'll be thinking, yeah, I get told a lot of stuff I do is disgusting. So let's just add this to the list. Then you follow up, we got dishes sitting in the sink acting like they own the place. And this is our house. Are you going to protect our house? Now, it's critical you use that phrase, our house, multiple times, because that will mean something to him as an athlete. Like, you're always supposed to win on your home court, or home floor, or home, I don't know, whatever bowlers have. I guess they're home lanes. You have to protect your house. So now he'll be ready to go. You're like, I want you to get in there, scrub the crap out of those dishes and put them back where they belong. Can you do that? Then go. And when he runs in, you can even slap him on the backside. In fact, you can really wind up and like, bam, if it helps you get out some frustrations, because the harder you slap his rear end, the more he will think you like him as a coach. So win-win. But there you go. If you want to know how to motivate your males, just talk to him like a coach would.